Picture this. It is a Saturday morning in a driveway somewhere in America, and a guy has just popped the hood on his brand new car for the very first time. He wanted to do something simple, change the cabin air filter, maybe check the oil level. Instead, he is staring down at a plastic engine cover with a little warning sticker that says "Do not service without certified diagnostic equipment," and buried somewhere underneath it is an engine bay packed so tightly that his knuckles are bleeding before he has even located the dipstick. This is not fiction. This is the reality for millions of new car owners in 2026, and it did not happen by accident. For decades, working on your own car was practically a rite of passage in this country. Change your own oil on a Sunday afternoon. Swap your own brake pads in an hour with a jack and a torque wrench. Maybe even pull an engine with a buddy and a case of soda if you were feeling ambitious. But somewhere between the rise of turbocharging, the explosion of onboard software, and the arrival of sealed, quote-unquote maintenance-free components, that freedom started disappearing fast. Sealed transmissions that are never meant to be opened by anyone outside a factory. Software locks that require manufacturer authorization just to reset a simple warning light. Electronic control modules that cost more than a used car just to replace a single failed sensor. This is not just internet complaining either. It is a real enough problem that states like Massachusetts passed and later expanded actual right to repair legislation, specifically because independent shops and everyday owners were getting locked out of vehicle data and repair access by design, not by accident. The independent mechanic, the guy who has fixed cars in his own garage for 30 years, is increasingly shut out of his own trade. But here is the good news. Not every automaker has fully surrendered to that trend, and that is exactly what we are digging into today. Because buried inside the 2026 model lineups, there are still a small number of new vehicles that respect old-school serviceability. Cars with naturally aspirated engines instead of complicated forced induction setups. Cars with massive, decades-deep parts networks instead of proprietary black boxes only the dealer can touch. Cars that independent mechanics actually enjoy working on because they have seen the exact same platform 1,000 times before and know every single quirk. If you are the kind of driver who wants to keep a vehicle for 200,000 miles and beyond without selling a kidney every time the check engine light flickers on, stick around, because we are counting down the 7 most genuinely reparable new cars you can buy in 2026. And if you love straight talk about the cars the industry does not necessarily want you thinking too hard about, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because this countdown is about to get very, very interesting. Let us kick things off at number 7 with the Ford Maverick XL 2.0 EcoBoost with all-wheel drive for the 2026 model year. Under the hood sits a 2.0-liter EcoBoost turbocharged inline-4, producing somewhere around 250 horsepower, paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission and the option of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Now, right away, some of you are yelling at your screen because yes, this is a turbocharged engine, and turbochargers are usually public enemy number 1 on any list about easy repairs. But here is the twist. This exact 2.0-liter EcoBoost engine family has already been sitting under the hoods of literally millions of Ford vehicles sold across North America. It shares its core architecture with the Ford Escape and the Ford Bronco Sport, both built on the same unibody platform as the Maverick itself, which is assembled at Ford's plant in Hermosillo, Mexico. That kind of shared DNA means virtually every independent repair shop in the country has already seen this engine 100 times over. Parts availability, both genuine Ford components and quality aftermarket alternatives, is enormous. Oil changes, filters, spark plugs, and brake jobs are all straightforward thanks to genuinely good access under the hood, and there is a massive do-it-yourself community online, posting step-by-step videos for nearly every repair imaginable. Of course, it is not perfect. That turbocharger does add complexity that a naturally aspirated engine simply does not have, and the direct injection system means carbon buildup on the intake valves is something owners genuinely need to stay ahead of with preventive maintenance. Some of the more advanced electronic modules still require a professional scan tool for coding after replacement. And the engine bay, while accessible, is noticeably tighter than what you would find in a mid-size pickup like a Ford Ranger or a Toyota Tacoma. Still, for a modern turbocharged truck, the Maverick earns its spot on this list because sheer familiarity beats mechanical novelty almost every single time. Moving on to number 6, we are heading straight into naturally aspirated territory with the Mazda CX-32.5S for 2026. This compact crossover is powered by Mazda's 2.5-liter naturally aspirated Skyactiv G engine, producing right around 191 horsepower, sent through a 6-speed automatic transmission to all 4 wheels. In an era where nearly every compact crossover on the market has gone turbocharged, hybridized, or both, Mazda has quietly kept things refreshingly old school. There is no turbocharger spooling under boost pressure, no hybrid battery pack to monitor, and no complicated dual motor system hiding under the floor. Just a proven, high-compression, naturally aspirated 4-cylinder doing exactly what naturally aspirated engines do best, which is being boringly, wonderfully reliable. Owners report very few chronic issues with this powertrain. The engine bay is relatively well organized for a compact crossover, and both the brakes and the suspension follow a simple, conventional layout that any competent independent shop can handle without breaking a sweat. The automatic transmission itself has built a strong reputation for long-term durability across the Mazda lineup. Where the CX-30 loses a few points is aftermarket parts availability, which, while solid, does not quite match the sheer volume you get with a Toyota or a Honda. Some Mazda-specific electronic components can also run a bit more expensive than mainstream competitors when they eventually do need replacing, and the workspace under the hood, while tidy, is still tighter than what you would find in a larger mid-size SUV. Even so, for anyone who wants a naturally aspirated crossover with genuine long-term reliability and none of the drama, the CX-30 deserves a very serious look. At number 5, we are talking about the Honda HR-V LX for 2026, and if there is one word that defines this vehicle's entire engineering philosophy, it is conservative, in the very best possible sense of that word. Power comes from a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated inline-4 producing approximately 158 horsepower, routed through a continuously variable transmission. Honda did not try to reinvent the wheel with the US market HR-V, and that restraint is exactly why it earns a spot here. The engine uses a timing chain instead of a rubber timing belt, which means there is no scheduled belt replacement interval hanging over your head down the road. Parts availability is outstanding across the board, independent reliability figures are consistently strong, and resale value remains some of the best in the entire compact crossover segment, which tells you everything about how rarely these vehicles actually go wrong. Preventive maintenance is refreshingly simple to keep up with, and the Honda owner community online is enormous, meaning there is a tutorial, a forum thread, or a full video walkthrough for basically any job you would ever need to tackle yourself. The primary downside is the continuously variable transmission itself, which demands strict adherence to fluid change intervals if you want it to live a long, trouble-free life. The engine bay is also on the smaller side compared to some rivals, and a handful of sensors, while reliable, are not exactly cheap to replace on the rare occasion they do fail. Still, for buyers who want a small crossover that will not blindside them with an expensive surprise repair bill, the HR-V remains one of the smartest, lowest drama choices on sale today. Number 4 takes us to the Subaru Crosstrek base trim for 2026, powered by a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated horizontally opposed boxer engine producing approximately 152 horsepower, paired with a continuously variable transmission and Subaru's legendary symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Now, boxer engines have a reputation, fair or not, for being a little trickier to service than a conventional inline-4, largely because of their flat, horizontally opposed cylinder layout, a design Subaru has leaned on for decades partly because of the low center of gravity it delivers. But despite that reputation, the Crosstrek remains one of the easiest Subaru models to maintain across the entire current lineup. The engine itself is proven, having powered Subaru vehicles for years with a genuinely strong track record. Reliability figures are excellent. The all-wheel drive system is deeply understood by shops across the United States thanks to Subaru's massive install base, and the suspension design is straightforward and conventional rather than exotic. The do-it-yourself community around Subaru vehicles is enormous, and parts availability, while not quite at Toyota or Honda levels, remains solid nationwide. Where things get slightly more labor-intensive is spark plug replacement, which, due to the boxer engine's flat layout, takes noticeably longer than it would on a conventional upright inline engine. High-mileage examples can also develop gasket leaks if maintenance is neglected over time, and the lateral clearance around the engine is more limited than what you get with a traditional inline-4 layout. Even with those quirks, the Crosstrek proves that even an unconventional engine architecture can still be genuinely serviceable when the fundamentals underneath it are sound. We are now halfway there, and at number 3 we arrive at the Toyota Corolla Cross LE, in its gasoline-only configuration, for 2026. This is where things start getting seriously impressive. The Corolla Cross LE gasoline variant uses a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated dynamic force engine, producing approximately 169 horsepower, mated to a continuously variable transmission. By skipping the hybrid version entirely, this configuration avoids the added complexity of a hybrid battery pack, a power control unit, and a second electric motor, while still delivering one of the most reliable powertrains sold anywhere in the United States today. Toyota's reliability reputation is not marketing spin, it is backed up year after year by independent dependability studies, and the dynamic force engine family has quickly built a track record of very low major failure rates since its introduction. It uses a timing chain rather than a belt, parts are about as easy to find as parts get in this entire industry, and maintenance costs are consistently among the lowest in the compact crossover segment. The trade-offs here are relatively minor. The continuously variable transmission is never going to excite driving enthusiasts looking for a manual gearbox or a traditional torque converter automatic. The engine bay is on the compact side, and there is limited room for anyone hoping to significantly modify the vehicle down the line. But if your priority is minimizing surprises over 200,000 miles of ownership, the gasoline-only Corolla Cross is about as close to a guarantee as this industry gets. At number 2, we have the Nissan Sentra S for 2026, and this car earns its spot on the list almost by default, in the best possible way. With the Nissan Versa having exited the US market entirely, the Sentra has become one of the most affordable new sedans you can buy in the entire country, and mechanically, it keeps things refreshingly simple. Power comes from a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated inline-4 producing approximately 149 horsepower, paired with Nissan Stronach continuously variable transmission. This engine has been around long enough that independent shops across the country know it inside and out. Parts are abundant and inexpensive, and basic maintenance access under the hood is genuinely excellent. The braking system is simple and conventional, and suspension repairs, when they are eventually needed, tend to be noticeably less expensive than on more complex competitors. For the price, the overall value proposition here is honestly hard to beat. On the downside, the continuously variable transmission still demands the same strict preventive maintenance that continuously variable transmissions always seem to demand. The interior is undeniably basic compared to some rivals, and the do-it-yourself community, while solid, is smaller than what you would find around a Toyota or a Honda. Still, as an affordable, mechanically uncomplicated sedan that will not punish you financially for basic upkeep, the Sentra more than earns silver medal status on this countdown. And that brings us to number 1, the car we consider the absolute holy grail of new vehicle serviceability in 2026, the Toyota Corolla LE sedan. If there is one new car sold in the United States today that embodies the entire idea of a modern automobile you can still maintain without a 4-figure diagnostic bill every time something goes wrong, it is this one. Power comes from a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated dynamic force engine, producing around 169 horsepower, paired with Toyota's direct shift continuously variable transmission. On paper, none of that sounds particularly revolutionary, and that is exactly the point. What makes the Corolla the ultimate pick is not one standout spec sitting on a page, it is the entire ecosystem built around it after decades on sale as, by most counts, the best-selling car nameplate in automotive history. This is one of the largest OEM and aftermarket parts networks of any vehicle sold in the country. Full stop. Mechanical reliability figures are outstanding. The naturally aspirated engine is proven across literally billions of collective real-world miles, and it uses a timing chain, meaning there is no scheduled belt replacement to ever plan around. Maintenance costs are consistently among the lowest of any new vehicle currently on sale, resale value remains excellent, and the do-it-yourself community around the Corolla is arguably the largest of any single car in this entire countdown, which means whatever job you're trying to tackle, someone out there has almost certainly already documented it in painstaking detail. Virtually every independent repair shop in the United States is deeply familiar with this platform, which keeps both labor costs and repair turnaround times down in a way that very few other new vehicles can genuinely match. There are, of course, a couple of minor trade-offs. The continuously variable transmission requires proper preventive maintenance to live a long and happy life. The engine bay is somewhat cramped by modern standards, and there is limited room for serious performance modification if that happens to be what you are after. But none of that changes the bottom line. In an era where automakers seem determined to make every single repair require a laptop, a software subscription, and a certified technician standing over your shoulder, the Corolla stands as living proof that mechanical simplicity has not completely disappeared from the new car market, it has just gotten a whole lot harder to find. So there you have it. The 7 new cars for 2026 that still respect the basic idea that you should be able to open your own hood without needing an engineering degree and a $500 diagnostic scanner sitting in your toolbox. Notice what almost every single entry on this list has in common. A naturally aspirated engine wherever possible, a timing chain instead of a rubber belt, a continuously variable transmission built by a manufacturer with a long, proven track record, and above all, decades of shared parts and shared knowledge spread across an entire nationwide network of independent shops. That is not an accident. And it is not old-fashioned thinking either, it is simply good, boring, time-tested engineering, and in 2026, that is worth more than ever. Whether it is the turbocharged practicality of the Maverick, the naturally aspirated simplicity of the Mazda, the Honda, and the Subaru, or the unshakable Toyota and Nissan trio that rounds out the top of this countdown, one thing is crystal clear, mechanical simplicity is not dead in 2026, it is just increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Now, I genuinely want to hear from you down in the comments. Which one of these 7 would you actually trust to get you to 200,000 miles with nothing more than a socket set and a Saturday afternoon? Or is there a car we left off this list that deserves a spot? Let me know your pick below, and I will see you in the next one.